Welcome to a live webinar hosted by Gavel & Gallon Software, makers of Amicus Attorney Practice Management Solutions. Our guest speaker today is Sherry Borek. Sherry has been an Amicus certified consultant for over 15 years. She is the president of Borek Consulting Group located in South Florida, servicing clients nationally. One of Sherry's specialties is in the time and billing arena, helping clients optimize their billable hours. In today's webinar, Sherry will speak to you about several tips and tricks for tracking billable time in Amicus Attorney using your natural workflow. Welcome, Sherry.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jody. I'm looking forward to speaking this afternoon. The topic of time and billing is one of my favorite ones because it is one in which you can absolutely take some small changes and make some very big differences. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Sherry Borek, and I am located in South Florida, as Jody said. I'd like to dive right into the topic. What we're going to be doing is going through some of the concepts about time entries, but also really diving in and showing you the way that the features work. So the first question would be, how do people generally track your time? In an ideal world, if you looked at your monthly timesheet, looking at today being the 12th, you'd be pretty set and full days with lots of time entries, tracking all of the work that you've done. In reality, however, it usually looks more like this. Big spots where there aren't any time entries at all, a lot of catch-up right before you're trying to do your billing. Some people may look and say, well, I don't actually need to track my time because I participate in an area of law like personal injury or criminal or any area where you depend mostly on contingency fee or flat fee. I tend to disagree, actually, though, because in cases where you have flat fees, how would you be able to analyze whether that flat fee was profitable? I've had many clients who, at the end of a case, have needed to produce some kind of an affidavit or needed to produce something for even a lien on a file and have to go back and recreate the file for 2 to 3 days, picking up a variety of pieces of paper or emails or documents and saying, I see that there's this motion here. I must have written it or read it or reviewed it. Clearly not the efficient way to go. So the question really becomes, where does the time go and what does the research say? Well, in 1990, there was a psychologist, Bill Friedman, who conducted a study that said people tend to underestimate their time when they're performing challenging tasks. And in fact, those studies were later proven and later found that as the tasks become even more challenging, the estimates of the time it took to complete them became smaller. In other words, you're probably leaving time on the table if you're billing for legal work and not tracking it contemporaneously. Some experts are going to say that you're losing up to 20% of the time that you work in that lost time area. Well, luckily, Amicus has a variety of ways that you can easily capture your time using your natural workflow. So we're going to put a poll on the screen now, and I'd like to get a sense of who we're speaking, who I'm speaking to and what versions of Amicus that you're using. We have a variety of options available because Amicus has a variety of options available depending on what your needs are, from small firms to large firms to mobility functions. And Jody is creating and opening that poll for us now. And you can see we're asking, what version of Amicus Attorney are you using? So we have a few options. We've got Small Firm Classic, Premium, Amicus Cloud. Maybe you're not sure what version it is, and you're not using Amicus yet. So if you can put your, decide which choice is applicable to you, we'll give that just about a minute for people to fill that in, and we'll take a look at who's in the virtual room. One of the things that I think is really fantastic about Amicus is that we do have so many options to fit the needs of a variety of firm sizes and firm styles. Once we do this, we're going to jump into the various features of Amicus so that we can take a look live. We'll give it just another few seconds, and then we'll close that poll. All right, Jody, tell us what our results are. Okay, so it looks as though we have quite a mix of people, and we have quite a few people with, each of the versions, and the dominant one we have is Amicus Premium. I am going to take a look, and the good news is we are going to be looking live at Amicus Premium. I am going to dive right into the features, but before I do, I'd like to just talk just a minute about why you should care and what the return on investment is. So let's say you're in a firm of one person. Of course, most of us are probably in a firm a little bit bigger than that, but let's just use this example. We have one staff person billing at $200 an hour. And the smallest unit of time that you're billing for is a 0.1 or 6 minutes. If you were to track just one extra unit of time per day in the course of a year, and that's a 5-day work week with 50 weeks a year, any guesses on how much extra time or extra value you'd have captured for your firm or for yourself? It's actually $5,000, which is a little bit mind-blowing because we're not saying that you should work more. We're saying that you should capture more time and how that will affect your bottom line. So let's take a look at the actual version of Amicus. We're looking at Amicus Premium 2013, actually in the tutorial database. So you'll be able to see some sample information and various stuff that we're going to play with right now. Probably the feature that you're most used to is the timesheets module. I should also stop for a second, and for those of you who are small firm users or Amicus Cloud users, most of the same concepts do apply to everything that we're talking about, and I'll be happy to address questions about the differences at the end. In fact, let me pause and tell you that if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in at the chat in the bottom part of your webinar screen, and you will be able to, we'll be addressing those at the end of the webinar. So looking at our Amicus screen right now, we have our today's view, and we don't have any unposted time for today. Let's take care of that right now. I'm going to click on New in the bottom corner, and I'm going to choose a file, and I'll click on OK. And here in the description, I'm going to type in whatever I did with the client. OK, and I'm going to put in my amount of time, which was 0.3, and I'll click on OK. Believe it or not, that's actually the most manual way to create a time entry. And the reason I say that is because I had to manually fill in the time spent, I had to fill in the case, and I had to type in my description from scratch. So there's a lot of other ways that we can do that where we can, to use a colleague of mine's phrase, beg, borrow, and steal. So as my friend and colleague Nancy Dion is fond of saying, let's take some of the places that we can access and already have filled in the information and use it to populate our time entries. So if we start with the calendar, I'm going to look, and today I happen to have 2 appointments. And if I look on the right of one of those appointments under cross-examination on affidavit, I've got a blue rectangle. Now that's important because that is my indicator that I could make a time entry and I haven't yet. So if I click on that icon, it pulls up a time entry, and it has already filled in for me the file as well as the activity description. It also has filled in the name, the amount of time that I've spent based on how long that appointment was. Now if that appointment was a different time, I can always adjust that, but I have very little to fill in because it's already pre-populated. So I'm going to click on OK, and what you'll notice is that that blue entry icon is gone now, showing me that I've already made a time entry on it, no need to worry about it. Another thing that I can do is I can open up a time event details box, see the information on my screen, and at the bottom, I'm going to see this option that says do a time entry. You're going to see that do a time entry in many places in the program. So if I click on do a time entry, it gives me the opportunity to do that. Now notice this particular time entry did not give me an opportunity and fill in the file for me. And that's because when that event was created, there was no particular case selected for that. This is where I'd like to mention and suggest that even if you're doing things, and especially if you're doing things that are administrative, business development, even things like potential new clients, CLE, there's a variety of options that are available. You create a file for each of those. That way you can analyze how much time you've spent in the various time frames that you're going to be looking at. So I'm going to choose business development. I'll click on OK. This was a lunch, and I'm going to say no charge. Now, I am using an environment which has Amicus Premium Billing in it, which is the program that allows Amicus to also do its own billing, as well as many other features. You will notice that I see that I have work in progress and accounts receivable and some other things on that. You may not see that on your screens if you don't have Amicus Premium Billing. So I'm going to note here, lunch with Jonathan and Jack. It is no charge. I'll click on OK. And that's part of my daily record. Again, we're not asking you to work more. I just want you to track the amount of time you're actually working. Looking at my to-dos, I can see that I have to call Bill regarding the Simpson case, and I'm going to mark that done because I've already done it. And again, I have the ability to fill in the time entry. It has completely filled in the case and the time description. And so I'd always recommend that both for appointments as well as to-dos, you create that title in such a way that if you click do a time entry, you don't have to modify it very much. There's certainly ample opportunity for you to put other information in notes, or you'll be forced to delete or adjust it. Okay, so as far as a to-do is concerned, it wouldn't know how long you spent on it, so I'm going to fill in that information right now, and I'll click on OK. Okay, so looking at my calendar, I now have created 3 time entries in just a couple of moments for my existing appointments as well as the to-do that I have. Now, if I look at something in the future, let's say I look on the 14th, I have another lunch. Notice there's no blue indicator here. In this case, it's because that's in the future, and I won't be able to create an icon. I won't have that icon available to me to make a time entry until that happens in the past. However, if something changed or if I wanted to, I could, of course, click on it and do a time entry from this button. Okay. Another key thing to remember about the calendar, which is great, is the fact that if you click on this down triangle at the top right section of the screen, you have the ability to, on any given day, see your time entries. So let's go back to today. And you can see all of those time entries that I've made so far are here and showing whether it's been posted or not posted to the billing program. So if I want to look on any given day, I can see, while looking at my calendar, what's going on. Moving on from the calendar, we also can look at our tasks. And actually, that's sort of related to the calendar. Tasks is a view that allows you to see the to-dos in more of a list format instead of a day-by-day format. It's a really powerful tool, especially for those who prefer to work in a list view and look to see something beyond today and see anything from next 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, or so on. From here, I can right-click and do a time entry, or from that point, I can also double-click and do a time entry, or, as I showed you before, you can mark it done and do a time entry. So the right-click is a very powerful hidden feature. I think it's something that people often miss, because depending on where I am in the screen, if I right-click, for example here, I went to New and Time Entry, and I can create a time entry right from this right from the point I'm at, no matter what I've clicked on. I can also be anywhere in the program and right-click, and depending on where I am, it will give me a different set of information. So right-clicking over the tasks gives me a different set than right-clicking at the top, which gives me a view to go to various areas of the program. So we've got our calendar, we've got our tasks. Let's take a look at the communications. So we spend a lot of our time and a lot of our day communicating either via email or phone or messages throughout the day, actually. And so the Comm Center is an amazing opportunity for you to track all of those incoming and outgoing conversations and communications. I'm going to take a look at one of the messages that was given to me. So I'm going to double-click on my message from Jane Wu, and I have an opportunity with that message to create a phone call to return it. So I'm going to click on this black phone, and it's going to give me my phone call details. And my phone call details is where I get to choose to put in as much or as little time information as I want. Not really just time information, but communications information. So I did speak with Jane regarding my negotiations. We offered a lot of money to settle. I love this feature because it gives me the opportunity to really track what happened, and I may not have spoken with this person. I may have done other things. As you can see, there's a list here of options, including voicemail and no answer and conference call. So I spoke with Jane. As you can tell, I've been speaking with her for about 50 seconds or so. I'm going to choose to make a time entry, and it's going to create a time entry, again, filling in the file name, filling in the activity information, filling in the status, saying whether I spoke or left a voicemail. Now, some may tell me, but Sherry, I really want to include the details about what that phone conversation was. And that's completely possible. It's a specific setting and a preference that you can set per person. So per workstation, you can have a variety of them. For some firms, they really want to keep their time entries very succinct and to the point and not include a lot of extra information. For other firms, they really want it to be very, very detailed so there's no question when the bill comes. So you'll notice that it has rounded my time spent to the nearest 0.1. Again, that's a preference. And so it took my 58 seconds and made it a 0.1. I can click on OK. And from a phone call, actually starting from a message, with one click, I made a phone call, and with a second click, I did a time entry. My goal in showing you these things today is to really show you the ways that which you're hopefully already using Amicus and be able to add on to it with the capturing of more time, but not more work. Looking at my emails, I have my email integration turned on, and I have a saved email here from Phil. I've got, it's about the widget code case. Someone's reminding me about something. No problem. Let me make a time entry on that. And here I have pre-filled in email correspondence with the person that I was having that for. Again, because it doesn't know how long you've spent on that, it is going to force me to ask how long, and I'll put in, let's say, a 0.4. It took me a long time to read that email. All right, I'll click on OK. And just like with the calendar, the places that I have created and made a time entry no longer have that little time entry indicator on the far right. If I wanted to make a very quick time entry, I could click on that indicator again, and it would pop up with all the filled-in information. So I just made a email correspondence with Gary Burwood. That wasn't very long, so I'll have a 0.1. Now, if you're in the actual file, let's take a look there, because oftentimes people will look in the file to see a variety of information. I'll go to look at Burwood versus Wright. And I have my case, and it's got a little summary here about what's going on. And I may want to look here where it says time spent and go through the various amounts of time. At the top, I have a new button. And so I can click on new. Again, it's filled in the name of the case. And I'm going to type in a description. And I think that you'll notice that what I did when typing in that description is I just typed a couple of keys relating to what I wanted. So I just typed in maybe TCC for telephone conference with client regarding drafting documents. There is a preset amount of shortcuts that are already in Amicus Premium, and you can add to that and make your own shortcuts. And as I'm a big fan of efficiency, I think that that's one of the great things that you can do to minimize the amount of time you're spending typing. It'll increase efficiency and minimize spell checking mistakes. So that is an availability of you creating your own list of shortcuts, and it's quite easy to do. I'm going to have 0.5 for that, and I've created yet another another time entry from within the file. Now, as long as I'm here, I might look at something like the communications and be able to see that these are all of the communications on the file. And again, we see the ever-present time entry indicator showing that I could make a time entry for that. So wherever I am, whether it is on the events or whether it is on the communications, or perhaps we'll look at notes. So looking at all file notes, oftentimes clients will want to add notes to the file. They're not a phone call per se. It's not an email, but it's something that they want to note to the file so that they can keep track of it. So I'm going to say received production and discovery information. And this is something that I wanted to keep track of, the date that I did that. And again, I've got do a time entry. So I'm going to say do a time entry for that. And I'm going to put in my 0.3. And I'll click on OK. Now, one of the things that I haven't talked about that it would be worth mentioning here is that when I'm making a time entry, if I click on the top, at the top where it says timekeeper, perhaps I'm an assistant and I'm helping my the attorney catch up on their time, and the time entry is not really for me. It's for somebody else. It's on behalf of somebody else. I'm just helping them out. So I can click on this blue icon at the top and change the person. Maybe it was Bobby that did the work. I'll click on OK. Now it does give me a warning telling me that make sure that the rates and everything else is appropriate for that. Yes, I do want to continue. And this time it was Bobby that had the meeting with the client. And in fact, maybe it didn't happen today, maybe it happened yesterday. So I can create time entries from within my own office without going anywhere else for myself or for other staff people as well. Now, looking at the outside, looking back at our Amicus screen here, we've got a couple of other places that you may not have noted that time entries could be created. So for example, I've got the library. The library is an opportunity to show you the resources and links and toolbars related to resources that you want to share within your firm. They could be private resources. They could also be public resources. They could be links to statutes, websites, documents, anything else that you might need. And one of the things that we can do is we can create a setting so that when you do a launch of a library resource, it'll automatically start a timer. So looking at that timer, what you can see, and just give it one more second. I see that the screen's paused, so here we are back again. Looking at that library setting, when you launch that resource, and I'll just look at a bar association. This is just one of the standard ones that are there. When I click on launch, it could automatically start a timer for you. Now, let's say that timer didn't go on. I'm going to go, because I didn't set the preference, I'm going to go show you where the timer is. So let's view the toolbars here. I'm going to show you the timer toolbar. This is a feature that not everybody takes advantage of. The timer toolbar can sit separate from the Amicus toolbar. It will allow you to show and track time that you've spent on any cases. In fact, if I look at the timer, you can see it's been going on for 17 seconds or so. And I can choose the case that I'm working on by clicking on this icon. And let's say Burwood versus Wright. I'll click on OK. I may not want to fill in the description right now, or I might. Let's say draft stuff. And I'll click on OK. And you can see at the top, I've got this timer working. So whether I'm in Word or WordPerfect or working on the internet or doing research or whatever it is that I'm doing, this timer is going to continue to move forward until I hit stop. And so if I click on the stop key for now, I may want to make another thing because I've created and I've started working on something else. In our multitasking world, that often happens. We start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. Well, the good news for that is that the timer can easily handle that. So I'm going to choose a different file. I'll choose the Aladdin purchase. And I actually am not going to even put a description in. And if you notice here, if I click on the down triangle, you'll see the time entries that you've been working on throughout the day. So if I click on Burwood versus Wright again, that 1 minute is now continuing on and starting and continuing to be going. If I click on stop, I can go back to Aladdin, and now Aladdin timer is going. So throughout the day, I can show this timer wherever I am, if I'm working on a document or anything else, and just have that constantly running. If I have gone through all of those other things, and I may want to capture, if you recall looking at the files, I could say file by file. I could look at it, and I could open up the file, and I could look for all those little blue indicators, and I could see any places that I might have missed. But there's a better solution, and the Amicus folks have designed it, and it's called the timesheets. So looking at the timesheets where I have all of the time entries that I may have created, at the bottom, in the middle, I have a time entry assistant. It's kind of like your valet or your butler for creating and capturing your time. If I click on Time Entry Assistant, what it's going to do is it's going to go through the program and actually look for any places that you might have made a time entry, but you didn't. And from that point, it will allow you to either create a time entry in a batch or create time entry one by one. So if I look, let's look for a second and see if I have any phone calls here. I have a phone call that was done on the 6th. I'm going to click on Do a Time Entry. And again, I've got my time entry. Great. Boom. I've made my point 2. Let's go back to the Time Entry Assistant again. And I may have several that I want to make. So if I highlight more than one, I can then click on Time Saver, and it will take the titles from the details and all the information that it has, and it will create those time entries in a big batch. It's asking me if I want to make a time entry combining them. I don't. Thank you for asking. And if I look back on the 6th, you can see it actually made those time entries and those telephone calls for me in one batch. I've had clients who have used the Time Entry Assistant and have said that they have literally recaptured thousands in time that they would otherwise not have known about or billed. So that Time Entry Assistant is a really valuable place because what it's looking for is all of those places like the calendar, the phone calls, the emails, and everything else that it could have made a time entry and did not. Looking back, we also have an area for the dailies. So take a quick look at the dailies. And the dailies is an opportunity for you to see the practice reminders. And the one thing I want to show you about that is that it automatically recalculates every day for if there are any days that you haven't created time entries, if you have time entries without file assignments, and you can see reminders for places like phone calls or emails that you may or could have made a time entry but did not. It's a really underutilized feature of the program that I think is worth looking at, because anywhere there's a hyperlink, it'll zoom in to that area and allow you to check it out and address. So the dailies practice reminders is another area, one of those hidden things that people don't always take a closer look at. My guess is that most of us nowadays do not spend all day, every day in the office. And in fact, more and more often, we need to be available all the time for anywhere, anytime. And Amicus has designed several features that are available, what I call mobility features. I'm going to go to a browser right now, and I'm going to go to amicustimetracker.com. This is a feature that's available for anyone with either Amicus Small Firm or Amicus Premium with a maintenance plan. And so if you picture this as one of your mobile devices, whether it's a phone or a tablet or even a computer off-site, what you can do is log in and create the time entry simply by clicking on the plus. And if I click on File, I'm going to just pick the one file here, and my duration was 0.3, and I had a telephone conference with a client, and I'll save it. What's important to understand about this is that this is live data accessing your server. It is not stored on the internet. It is simply relaying the information to your database. So virtually within moments of you putting in that information, it is live in your database. So there's no synchronization, there's no plugging anything in, there's no trying to figure out if there's something that is or isn't connecting, because it's immediately directly putting into your database. It is available in both Small Firm and Premium. And it is something that is quite easy to use. It is available as through a website. I'll actually show you where that is for those of you who may not be aware of it. Let's log out and log back in. Apparently my internet site is a little bit slow. There we go. So I am using a special site, but you would be using your own. I mean, it's the same site, but you would be using your own login and your own password. And so if you picture this as your phone, it's as simple as going to the site, logging in with your name and your secure password, and starting right there. So the capturing of time is pretty immediate, and you don't have to worry about being in the office to track your time. On the same note, Amicus Premium also has some additional features called Amicus Anywhere. And Amicus Anywhere enables you to look at not just your time entries, but information within the cases, information on your calendar and tasks and contacts. Our topic today is not Amicus Anywhere, but I do want to just show you at least a little bit. If I open up, for example, Bailey Reed Kipling, what you'll see is the availability of the contacts. You'll also be able to see the notes on the file in terms of the main note. You'll also be able to see the time entries and create new ones. So if I click on New, very, very, very similar to everything else. The only thing that's different in my mind is that the duration's at the top and not the bottom. And I can choose whatever I said and then save and close. And just like with Amicus Time Tracker, this information is pretty much goes live into your database with no additional needs necessary. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing, no matter what it is that you're doing, is, and let's go back to our Amicus here. If I go to my timesheets, we've got a couple of the time entries that I've made on the 6th, plus the ones that I was making throughout the day. I've got my monthly view. I also have my statistics. But I have the ability to look later and say, okay, I've captured everything that I need to capture so that I can go through and make sure that my time was accomplished and my time was accommodated for. One of the things, once you have your information handy and you have all of the data that you need, the next step in that is to analyze it. Now, another of the consultant spotlights a little bit later this month is the perfect topic for that. It's strategic decisions, leveraging practice management software. So once you have all that data, what does it actually mean? I encourage you to sign up for that and work and listen to the colleagues of mine who can give you the next step in once you've got your data captured. Let's just take a quick look at the summary of what it is that we've done today, and then we'll open the floor in just a moment for questions. So looking at the types of things that we looked at earlier, we've got the areas of the program that allow you to track your time, including the timesheet module, the calendar, the tasks, the communications, the notes, the timer. But wait, there's more. The library within the file using the time entry assistant, and of course those mobility features. So I'm hopeful that this brief overview is giving you enough information to at least pick one or two of those tips and incorporate them immediately. Because remember, that point 1 turns into quite a bit at the end of the year. I think we'll open Jody and let you move into our next phase.
Thank you very much, Sherry. We hope that the audience found this session informative and useful. If you'd like to contact Sherry Borek, she can be reached at 954-963-7621 or via email at info@borek, B-O-R-E-K, consulting.com. Sherry would also like to share her guide to tracking time in Amicus Attorney with you. If you'd like to receive a copy of this free guide, please email Sherry at info@borekconsulting.com. And for a list of upcoming webinars, please visit the Amicus Attorney website at www.amicusattorney.com.